Daily Trust News Center. This is the News Hour.
On News Hour tonight, ECOWAS rejects three-year transition plan by Niger's military authorities. NDLEA intercept Abuja-bound $20 million counterfeit dollars. Housewife abandoned with 4 children responding to treatment in hospital. And on sports, Spain beat England to win first Women's World Cup. Hello and welcome to News Hour on Trust TV. I am Abdurrahman Omar. Thanks for joining. And now it begins. There are indications that the Economic Community for West African States may reject proposals by Niger's new military ruler, General Abdurrahman Tiani, for a 3-year transition of power program. ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Abdel Fattah Musa, told the BBC that General Tiani's proposal was just a smokescreen for dialogue and diplomacy. He said the Nigerian military should rather focus on fighting the terrorists rather than governance. ECOWAS has said it will continue to negotiate for a peaceful resolution of the crisis in Niger, but has not ruled out military intervention to restore constitutional order. Niger's new military ruler, General Abdurrahman Tiani, had proposed a transition of power that would not go beyond 3 years, saying he had launched a national dialogue which has 30 days to formulate proposals to lay the foundations of a new constitutional life. In a 12-minute televised speech, Tiani, however, warned that any attack on the country will not be a walk in the park. In the meantime, back here in Nigeria, the People's Redemption Party, PRP, has warned President Bola Tinubu and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, not to go to war with the Niger Republic. The Conservative Opposition Party, in a statement by its national chairman, Falalu Bello, in Abuja on Sunday, said going to war to restore constitutional democracy in the neighboring country is not in the interest of Nigeria, Niger, as well as ECOWAS. He said war will destabilize the entire Sahelian region and could lead to the spread of violence and instability to other countries in the West African sub-region. Therefore, he stressed that there exists an excellent neighborliness and good relationship between the two countries that are closely linked economically, culturally, and geographically, and it will be tragic if these relationships for centuries are strained or even broken by war. Bello further added that the recent altercation between Nigeria and the Niger Republic are avoidable and should be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy. Now, moving on to the next lesson, we are to ensure that the Nigerian People Democratic Party is to launch other sectors of the economy, which will be on most occasions. Now, after that, it will seem that other stories may be on another far end of the train. Now, moving on. Even before the inauguration of his cabinet on Monday, President Bola Tinubu has moved around ministers designate, deploying Abubakar Momo from the Ministry of Youth to the Ministry of Niger Delta Development. The Ministry of Youth is to be reassigned to a minister designate soon, while the president has also moved around ministers designate allocated to the Federal Ministry of Transportation, Interior and Marine, as well as Blue Economy. And a statement released late on Sunday night from the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Ajur Ngelale, explained that changes directed by the President will take immediate effect. To this end, Adeboyoga Oyotola has been redeployed as the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy. Bunmi Tunji Ojo has been moved to Ministry of Interior, while Saidu Alkali now holds the portfolio as the Minister of Transportation. Meanwhile, both ministers of state in the oil and gas sector are now domiciled in the Elder Ministry of Petroleum Resources, with Henneken Lapoberis designation changing to Minister of State Oil, Petroleum Resources, while Eperepe Epo will now be addressed as Minister of State Gas Petroleum Resources. The President has also approved the renaming of the Ministry of Environment and Ecological Management to the Ministry of Environment. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been urged to extract the needed political will in his appointees in order to guarantee leadership accountability. The call is coming ahead of the inauguration of the recently cleared ministerial appointees into the Federal Executive Council. Trust TV's Jamie Azandi sent in this report from Makurdi.
Regarding that program, because once Nigerians hear a figure, their ears go up. Oh, one big figure has been mentioned. No. Regarding that program, every single payment, and I insisted to the past president that it must come from the central bank directly to the accounts of the people who were nominated to receive those funds. And so we as ministers, both ministers in the ministry and the head of the agency at that time that we supervised, never saw one kobo.
As ministerial appointees of President Bola Tinubu prepare for the task of governance after the inauguration, Nigerians are expressing high expectations on the ministers designate to add value to governance through hard work and dedication for the development of the country. In Makurdi, residents say extracting the needed political will from the appointees is essential to governance delivery.
If you have a president or a governor who's oriented towards bringing development, of course, you will have to work or you'll be shown the door. So I have seen it's not personnel changes that will do this. It is the vision of the president. If he puts you there in a particular position as a minister, he has to give you a target on what he expects you to do. And if you don't meet the target, then you should be shown the way out. Because Nigerians are highly qualified people who are well trained too.
They also harped on the need for credibility, integrity and accountability from the ministers as they hit the ground running.
The odds rest on the president to inject the right political willpower. And I think the people that have been selected so far are ably qualified.
So give and take, it's a fair list, and then we hope for the best, from the president and his ministers.
With the rising economic hardship in the country as a fallout of the fuel subsidy removal, there is high hope among Nigerians on the need for a robust and result-oriented Federal Executive Council that would add value to governance and revive the hopes and aspirations of the citizenry. Jimmy Azandi, Trust TV News, Makurdi.
Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project (SERAF) has urged Tinubu to instruct former governors serving as ministers in his administration to stop collecting life pensions, exotic cars and other allowances from their states. A statement on Sunday signed by SERAF Deputy Director Kolowale Oluwadare said the president will be acting in the public interest by giving the instruction in light of the current grave economic realities in the country. The civil society organization urged Tinubu to instruct the former governors to immediately return any pension and allowances that they may have collected since leaving office to the public treasury. If its recommendations were not adhered to within 7 days, SERAF threatened that it will consider appropriate legal actions to compel government to comply with its request in the public interest. There are 8 former governors who are now ministers in the Tinubu administration, including Badaru Abubakar, Nyesom Moki, Adeboyoga Oyotola, and David Omahe. Others are Simon Lalong, Atiku Bagudu, Bello Matawalli, and Ibrahim Gaidam. Meanwhile, residents of Jos, the Plateau State capital, are expressing reservations over the utilization of the approved $5 billion for each state by President Bola Tinubu to cushion the effect of the current subsidy removal-induced economic hardship in the country. While some are of the opinion that the approved fund is a welcome idea, others are skeptical that the fund will be judiciously shared amongst the most vulnerable in the society. Trust TV's Ado Musa completes the report.
The removal of fuel subsidy by the president led to high cost of living in the country, pushing millions of vulnerable Nigerians into hardship. To ameliorate the sufferings, the federal government recently approved 5 billion naira for each state to reduce the pains and hardship citizens of the country are going through. But some Nigerians are worried over the effective and judicious utilization of the money by the state governors.
Actually, the palliative policy by the federal government is a welcome development, especially now that people are suffering. The only problem is the political will from the states in such a way that the palliative will reach the target audience. That's just my fear.
Federal government shared 5 billion to all Nigerian governors. This policy is good, but believe me, this policy is not going to make any impact.
It is a welcome development. I must commend the federal government for the gesture. But our major concern is, how is this fund going to be shared? How this fund will get to the right people? Dr. Isa Abdullahi is an economist and lecturer with the Federal University Kashari. He expressed reservation over the modalities for the distribution of the approved fund. Shortly after the federal government announced the approval of the 5 billion naira for each state of the federation and Abuja, Nigerians continue to express resentment over the effective application of the palliative due to the past experiences. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
And now on security matters, Multinational Joint Task Force MNGTF combating insurgency in the Lake Chad region said it has continued to record mass surrender of insurgents. A statement on Saturday by the spokesman of the task force, Lieutenant Colonel Abubakar Abdullahi, said the development was due to the intensified kinetic and non-kinetic operations adopted by the task force. He said over a span of 2 days from 14 to 15 August 2023, 4 key Boko Haram commanders, 13 men fighters and a total of 45 family members laid down their arms and surrendered to troops of Sector 3 MNGTF in Kroskawa and Baga of Kukau local government areas. According to him, surrendered items include 7 AK-47 rifles, 1 FNN rifle, SLR, nearly 440 rounds of assorted caliber ammunition, and other essential tools of insurgency. Abdullahi said last Tuesday, 2 commanders, 4 fighters, and their 24 family members also surrendered. He said that the task force has sustained calls on the remnants of the insurgents to embrace peace and surrender before it's too late, adding that surrender provides the safest route towards peace and rehabilitation. Meanwhile, the Borno State government said the biometrics data capture of repentant Boko Haram insurgents has resumed after a hinge that led to protests by some of them in Maiduguri. The State Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Usman Tar, said so far a total of 6,900 repentant insurgents were processed. This, he said, was done under the disarmament, mobilization, the radicalization, rehabilitation, reconciliation, and reintegration program known as the Borno model. Now, Commander for Special Forces Command of the Nigerian Army, Duma, the headquarters of Duma local area of Nasarawa State, Major General Hilary Inzan, has tasked troops of the command to redouble their efforts in addressing insecurity in communities around the north-central part of the country. In a statement signed by Major Joseph Adekunle Afolasafe, Deputy Director, Army Public Relations, said the commander visited various formations and units under the 4th Special Forces Command in Niger State, north-central Nigeria. He admonished them to redouble their efforts to ensure that they combat instability in communities throughout the north-central region of the nation. He, however, reiterated the commitment of the Nigerian Army to securing all parts of the country to pave the way for peace and socio-economic development, charging the troops to be versatile in their approach to any security threat across the area. While interacting with wives of the soldiers, the commander called on them to be relentless in praying for their spouses to be focused on confronting the bandits and insurgents terrorizing most parts of this country. Now, former President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed sadness over the death of several soldiers killed in an ambush and a subsequent helicopter crash in Niger State. The former president commiserated with President Bola Tinubu, the armed forces and the families of the deceased in a statement released on Saturday by his media aide, Garba Shehu. The former president said he was saddened by the deaths but expressed confidence that with the discipline in the ranks, it was only a matter of time before they overcame the raging insecurity in the country. Now, a stop and search operation by operatives of the NDLEA on the Lokoja Abaji of FCT Highway has uncovered 20 million counterfeit dollars. The spokesman of the NDLEA, Femi Babafemi, stated this on Sunday in a statement where he said that the fake currencies were recovered from a bus traveling from Lagos and heading to Abuja. Femi stated that the 53-year-old driver of the vehicle, Oyebuchi Lededen, was arrested. Babafemi stated also that one George Jude Ndubusi was arrested in a raid on August 17 while in possession of 2.2 kilograms of methamphetamine and Kabusa village of FCT. He added that the suspect was earlier arrested on July 7th last year for being in possession of 20.75 kg of Indian hemp and that he was on court bail when he was nabbed for yet another drug crime. Babafemi added that 3 other suspects, Ndubusi Okore, 44 years old, Ebilima Emmanuel, 38 years old, and Okechukwu Smart, 40 years old, were arrested on August 19th in connection with 168 kg of Indian hemp seized from them. The suspects were arrested when their vehicle was intercepted on the Owerri-Onitsha Expressway. The NDLEA spokesman added that a wanted 19-year-old bandit, Aliyu Muhammad Altini, was arrested by NDLEA operatives on Ilela Sokoto Road with some wraps of skunk on Thursday, August 17. Altini was on the wanted list of the police and has since been handed over to the police in Sokoto State for further investigation. Babafemi stated. Now, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has dismissed reports that it has engaged music star Afeez Adesina Fashola, popularly known as Naira Marley, as its ambassador. NDLEA spokesman Femi Babafemi, in a statement on Saturday, explained that the agency's dialogue with Naira Marley centered around using his skills and platforms to discourage millions of his followers and Nigerian youth from substance abuse. The artist had on Thursday led members of his team on a visit to the national headquarters of the agency in Abuja to express his preparedness to join the fight against drug abuse in the country. Babafemi said that the clarification had become necessary following continued misrepresentation of the purpose of the visit, especially on online platforms, particularly reports that suggested that the British-Nigerian singer was appointed as NDLEA ambassador. He noted that the decision to dialogue with Naira Marley was because of his over 7 million followers, half of whom abused drugs in Nigeria. The agency, according to Babafemi, is hopeful that Naira Marley will going forward use his platform to share anti-substance abuse messages rather than promote and glamorize drug abuse. You're watching News Hour on Trust TV. Coming up after the break, we take a look at how visually impaired newscaster captivates his audience. Details of this and more after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back, and if you are just joining us, this is the News Hour on Trust TV, and here is a recap of some of our top stories. ECOWAS rejects 3-year transition plan by Nigeria's military authorities. And now, joining us via Zoom is Dr. Bashir Kurupi, an academic in the area of economic integration, Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, to discuss Niger coup. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, right, to dive right into it, could you tell us your impression of the 3-year transition being proposed by the Nigerian military leader and his unveiling plans for national dialogue among Nigerian citizens? Isn't that to say it's like foreclosing any dialogue?
No, not really. I think what they are trying to show the world, they have taken the initiative to do this coup precisely because of the instability in Niger under democratic process, whereby there is so much insecurity, poverty in the country, and for that it will be difficult for an outsider. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go on.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go on. I can hear you, Doctor. Go on. Doctor, can you hear me?
Statement to say that, no, this is not acceptable. I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Just go on, go on.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, it will be unfair to the military government in Niger to go and tell them, look, this period is not accepted. That's why the most important thing under this arrangement, you engage these people with that discussion. Because if you understand what is going on, they have abundant support by the Niger people. So probably they want to look certain provision of the constitution for it to be amended, because one of the grudge of the Niger people is that Nigerian politicians are becoming like Nigerian politicians, whereby everything have a price, that is cash and carry politics. You know, so for that reason, you have to see whether, how do they make amends? And also I say in addition to this, the approach Nigeria is doing, I think it marks some level of arrogance. Niger is a sovereign country, but as far as they are concerned, you have already declared war on them. You cut off light, you close the border. When the lights were cut, many children died though in incubator.
Now, Doctor, let's go right into it again. Now, it will seem that ECOWAS is calling the bluff of the Niger's military leader, Nigerian authorities. Now, will it be to say that it's ECOWAS on a firm ground to take this position? Do you think it can affect a return to democracy the way ECOWAS is taking their positions?
No, the way ECOWAS is going, they're not going for any dialogue. You just sit in Abuja or in Lagos or wherever, you give directive, you tell them that I gave you 1 week, you should vacate. Okay, assuming they vacate, then you say, okay, but don't take over power. And what happened to them? So you see, there should be level of dialogue. And I think also there is a mistake of even, if I were Abdul Salam, I would not be part of the negotiation. Because when Abdul Salam and Sultan landed in Niger previously, the day they landed, that was the time also they took off the lights. So how do you go for negotiation and you are already hostile to me? And also in addition, it is showing that the current government of Bola Tinubu have no respect for the viewpoint of the Nigerian people.
All right, Doctor.
Because if there is anything that united Nigerians, is this level of whereby we were united.
Doctor, now two of the prominent sides in this impasse is ECOWAS on one hand, and then we have the Nigerian authorities on the other. And both of them on one breath are speaking on the position of dialogue, and on the other one, they are so rigid on their position to say that ECOWAS on their part saying that, okay, they should leave on, abandon, try to reinstate power, and the other one, they are saying no, they want 3 years plans before that. How do you see all this?
No, this is normal. They are having a government in Niger. So if there is anything you want to do, negotiate with them. Why do they want 3 years? But the issue is that if you are going for negotiation, then you should have a neutral position. That's why I think it's wrong you appoint a Nigerian and ECOWAS to participate in the negotiation. You should bring independent people, some former president in other parts of the world, and come and sit and negotiate with this. But when you bring Nigeria under this circumstance, because they know the entire hostility is coming from Nigerian states, which I think is unfair to Nigerian people. And also, I don't think the Nigerian people, the Nigerian establishment have respect for the democracy itself, as what is happening in Nigeria. Because majority of the people in that border, in 7 states bordering Nigeria,
all right, Doctor,
they are losing.
All right, Doctor, one last question before we let you go. The sanction imposed on Niger is really taking a toll on the Nigerians. Now, do you think that especially it is affecting the economies of border communities in Nigeria, which is already precipitating and even bringing about humanitarian crisis? How long do you think ECOWAS can keep this up?
No, well, ECOWAS can keep it as long as they want. But they must know there is some consequences because people are really suffering under this arrangement. Actually, it's a declaration of war because what you have blockade. But we also have to be fair because it is not Tinubu who started this blockade of Nigerian people. It was under General Buhari. He blockaded them for 8 years. And that brings a problem and distrust from the Nigerian people. And Mike, you also, Nigeria betrayed from the international treaty. In international trade, there is certain agreement, whatever government you do, you cannot touch that international agreement.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much. All right, Doctor.
Our brothers and sisters.
All right, Dr. Bashir Kurpi, an academic on economic integration. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Now, moving on, human rights lawyer Femi Falana-Hassan has asked the Department of State Services, DSS, to release the suspended chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, Abdurrashid Bawa, from illegal custody without any further delay. According to him, a remand order issued by a magistrate court in the Federal Capital Territory has become spent invalid and illegal. Falana said no magistrate has the power under Section 493 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 or Section 35 of the Constitution of Nigeria to authorize the detention of a criminal suspect for 67 days without trial. In a stampede statement made available to newsmen on Sunday, Falana also asked the federal government to ensure that the rights of the suspended Central Bank of Nigeria Governor Godwin Emefiele and Bawa are respected by the DSS and the Office of the Director on Public Prosecution in the Federal Ministry of Justice, though the due disobeyed court orders when they were in office. Now, the Transition Monitoring Group, TMG, has expressed displeasure over efforts by some politicians and lawyers to compromise the judiciary into averting justice at election petition tribunals across the country. In a statement on Sunday, the chairman, TMG, Awal Musa Arab Sanjani, said it was disheartening to see such at a time when democracy had become more threatened in the West African sub-region. He advised politicians on the need to tread carefully to ensure the judicial processes regarding petitions from the 2023 elections are seen to be fair. The revelation on political efforts to subvert justice through bribery to justices and staff of courts, as has revealed by the chairperson of the Kano State Election Petition Tribunal, is of great worry to every concerned citizen of Nigeria. Afsajani said while the action of the Kano State Election Petition chairperson in coming out to speak out must be commended, one cannot hold back from imagined amount of corruption that will have already thrilled the tribunals across the country. According to him, at this point in time, when the outcome of the 2023 election has resulted to unprecedented number of cases before the courts, the judiciary has inevitably been positioned as the last bearer of the light of rule of law and has been left with the task of deepening democracy in Nigeria through fair hearings and impartial judgments. Meanwhile, a woman identified as Hadiza Abubakar and her 4 children abandoned by her husband are attracting empathy of Katsina residents after they were discovered in a rented house at Sabuwar Unguwar Shagari Locust, struggling to survive. According to reports, Hadiza Abubakar, her husband and the 4 children were displaced from Birnungwari area of Kaduna State due to banditry. Abdullahi Ahmadi, first was more on this.
According to reports, shortly after settling in Katsina, Hadiza's husband decided to abscond, leaving her and these 4 children to take their destiny into their own hands. For over 9 months now, Hadiza was left to shoulder the responsibility of these children, which forced her to begin a task she found as difficult as moving a mountain. However, to make things worse, Hadiza was hit by a motorcyclist while struggling to collect arms. According to reports, she was rushed home with a fracture and dislocation on her leg, with nothing to cater for her treatment. The ailing Hadiza remained indoors and in pens, surrounded by these malnourished and helpless young children for several days before some Samaritans noticed their condition and called for help. Brothers and sisters, this starved lady and her 4 children you are seeing are internally displaced persons from Birnungwari area of Kaduna State, but were abandoned by their breadwinner for over 9 months now. As it is, they are helpless, hungry, weak and tired. Kindly help with the little you can to save lives.
Actually, I was emotionally moved because the way I saw them and I look at them, these are also human beings and they are in this situation. One thing is, as an individual and a Muslim brother, I will never forgive the husband of this wife and the father of this children because he is the cause of all these problems.
Hadiza Abubakar was said to have been rushed to emergency unit of Federal Teaching Hospital Katsina on the instructions of Governor Dikko Umar Radda, where she is recuperating from the fracture and dislocation on her leg. On their part, these 4 malnourished children are sick, weak, and without food for many days.
I quickly ran to the house and saw how the children were. Then I went back and then I brought these items. I brought some food items, mattresses, cooking oil, and etc. And then we looked for a house for them with 3 bedrooms, a parlor, a kitchen, and a toilet.
Hundreds of Hadiza's kind are suffering from hunger and starvation and could even get worse if nothing is done to improve the socio-economic condition of ordinary Nigerians. Abdullahi Ismail Ahmadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Now, 1 in 7 global maternal deaths occurs in Nigeria, according to a United Nations report tagged Improving Maternal and Newborn Health and Survival and Reducing Stillbirth Progress Report 2023. But experts say family planning can reduce maternal mortality rate by 40%. Ibrahim Ismail reports.
Maternal mortality is prevalent in Nigeria. The country recorded 540 deaths per 1,000 women in 2020. Health experts recommend family planning, which is capable of reducing maternal death by almost 40%. To achieve that, advocates call on Gombe State government to release 60 million naira allocated to family planning services in the 2023 budget.
We feel there is need for line MDS, for instance, Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Ministry of Health, and other health-related agencies to release budget lines that are domiciled under their corpus, because we believe partners will go one day. If you are not releasing funds that you have under your state budget, to some extent, if the partners that you are supporting left or the partners that are supporting state left, we are going back to square one. And at the same time, we also appreciate the government for releasing a counterpart of over 36 million naira to UNFPA.
As of July 2023, over 28,000 women have accessed family planning services, and health advocates believe the figure could be higher with government's continuous funding to cater for family planning services.
We feel those women are still in our communities through sensitization, through providing various methods of family planning or child spacing, as we call it. Definitely we are going to assess such women, and we are going to abate death by, like I told you, the percentage earlier on.
The contraceptive prevalent rate in Gombe State is 17%, but stakeholders say over 800 women of reproductive age lack access to family planning services. Ibrahim Ismail, Trust TV News, Gombe.
Now, Nigeria's government is to partner with states and development partners such as the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, and others for the dissemination of family planning commodities in the country. The director of the Family Health Department in the Ministry of Health, Stella Umuso, said this during a state-level dissemination of the national guidelines for funded procurement of family planning commodities in Gusau, the Zamfara state capital. The report.
Represented by the Deputy Director, Pharmacy Ugochukwu Alex, the Director of Family Health in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Stella Umuosu, says the only way reproductive health commodity security can be achieved is when Nigerians of reproductive age can choose, obtain, and use family planning commodities. Pharmacist Alex emphasized that family planning is an important strategy for the prevention of maternal morbidities and mortalities, in addition to using it to improve socio-economic growth and development. He said it is in line with this that government is supporting interventions aimed at increasing the delivery of family planning services to Nigerians of reproductive age.
Since the implementation of the free FP commodities policy, demand for service has increased exponentially, leading to a huge increase in funding required for procurement of the commodities. And of course, this comes with challenge of sourcing the funds, which is a major issue facing Nigerian family planning program presently.
The Director Coordinator at Office of the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, Lord Akungo, also speak on the importance of family planning in not only protecting life, but also central to women's empowerment, reducing poverty, and achieving sustainable development goals, SDGs.
Not only is a woman and the entire family able to decide on the number of children they would want, they are also able to complete their education, and the women's autonomy within the household is increased, and their earning power is also improved. This also strengthens the economic security and the well-being of their family.
Supervisor, Family Health in Zamfara State, Haruna Dahiru, highlighted the importance of family planning commodity towards ensuring safer life and reducing pressure.
Family planning is a key regulatory services that I think we should need to strengthen it, because it goes a long way in subsiding pressure on populations. It goes a long way in mitigating child pregnancy. It goes a long way in not just having children, but we need to have a very good spacing.
Stakeholders in the health sector also unveiled the national document for state-funded procurement of family planning commodities, which has been described as critical to attaining family planning commodities.
Now, professional photographers eke out a living despite steep competition in the digital ecosystem and advancement in mobile phone technology. This comes to the fore as World Photography Day is marked to celebrate the process of documenting memories, which also brings photographers and photo lovers together. Silas Dawn witnessed this year's event and files in this report. That report during our subsequent bulletin. Moving on, the voice of a visually impaired person, Salisu Ibrahim, captivates many radio listeners in Kaduna. The story of Ibrahim, a newsreader at Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, Kaduna, is an example of ability in disability. Despite all odds, he achieved his dreams and inspired a community of people with special needs. Bella Musa has more to it.
Born in Kano in 1979, Salisu Ibrahim was enrolled by his parents into special education school in Kano, from where he proceeded to Government Secondary School Gwale and then to Kaduna Polytechnic, where he graduated with HND in Mass Communication. He later obtained master's degree in Digital Technology, Communication and Education from University of Manchester in the United Kingdom.
Based on the information received from my parents, it was as a result of a normal or regular eye illness. I had an eye illness. After some times, they discovered that if I was asked to take or bring something, it was not the business as usual. So they gradually or they discovered that I had challenge with my sight. So then the efforts to regain the sight started with no positive response or results.
With his condition, this visually impaired person defied all challenges and achieved his dream.
At Government Secondary School Gwale, that's where I started using typewriter to write tests or assignments. And with the help of friends, notes were dictated to me, to have it for my use. So that is for Gwale. Coming to Mass Communication Department, I was the only blind person. I was even the first blind person admitted into Mass Communication in the history of the Department of Kaduna Polytechnic. And the same method was applied, using typewriter for tests, assignment and exams. And friends dictated the notes and handouts to me for my reading.
Translation of news bulletin from English to Hausa is no mean task in the newsroom, but with the use of Braille, Ibrahim carried out his job diligently, rising to the position of a manager translation at FRC in Kaduna.
I was using two methods at that time. Firstly, I was either to record news, the English news, which I will be transcribing and use my Braille to translate, or get the support of one of the friends or staff to dictate the English copy of the news, which I will translate into Hausa and go independently to cast it live from the studio. Gwamnatin tarayya ta nanata aniyar da take da shi na inganta rayuwar al'ummar ƙasa. Ƙungiyar kwadugo ta ƙasa wato NLC ta yi barazanar shiga yajin aiki.
I worked with him for over a decade. Salisu is somebody that you can rely on. Salisu is a gifted because looking at his condition, Salisu never for once accepted that he's incapable.
He has exceptional traits and gifts attached to him. For example, you can give Salisu your phone number now. Once, and you can come back a week or a month or a year, and he will still call that numbers for you. He's such a gifted person, down to earth.
Well, despite his physical challenges, whenever he's delivering, you will not even supersede those that are that don't have physical challenges, because he does his work, he's dedicated at what he does.
Salisu Ibrahim is the first blind person to study mass communication in Kaduna Polytechnic, and also first in the north to start translation and read news on radio at FRCN. He also lectures at the Department of Mass Communication, Kaduna State University. Salisu attended courses and conferences within and outside Nigeria, and presently a state auditor of NUJ Kaduna Council. Bello Musa, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
Now, Argungu local government area in Kebbi State is famous for the traditional fishing festival that attracts tourists from across the world. Thousands of fishermen converge in a small river where they will compete to catch the biggest fish, with the winner taking as much as 10 million naira. The fishing festival, which is shrouded in mystery, has left many wondering what is behind the size of fishes often caught in the river. Therefore, in this special report, Ayuba Ilia unravels the mystery behind the river. Let's take a look.
Matamfada River in Argungu local government area of Kebbi State bears rich history. It is the stream where the famous Argungu Fishing Festival holds. Matamfada, which in Hausa translates to mean women of the palace, is the venue where peace was made between the Sokoto Caliphate and the Kebbi Kingdom in 1934.
There was conflict between us, but then Hassan Damuazu, decided to pay a peaceful visit to Argungu in 1934 for the first time. Prior to that time, the Sultan of Sokoto was in Argungu 4 times, trying to defeat the kingdom, but that was not successful. So that turning point visit, was seen as something momentous in our history. And the emir at the time, my great-grandfather, Muhammad Sama, decided to celebrate the visit with, which coincided with the period of the fishing festival. It was a fishing event for the Sultan.
Since the end of hostilities between the two kingdoms, the Argungu Fishing Festival has been marked as a celebration of unity and tradition. The now 4 days event climaxed with bare-hand fishing competition, where a swarm of fishermen squeeze into the stream to catch the biggest fish, to the delight of spectators from across the globe.
This is Matamfada River. It is about 50 meters wide and 50 feet deep. On the day of the Argungu Fishing Festival, it is very unlikely that people like me will get a chance to enter into this water because of the number of fishermen that will be in this water in search of fish.
The contrast between the small size of this river and the quantity and size of fish caught during this festival have been a source of speculation about the use of black magic powers in the river.
Wanda ma ya kama giwar road ya zanna daya ba ko wani musunci ne na kware ba, kaga Allah na ya bashi sa'a. Dan haka a ce tsahi ne shi bai san ma wannan abun ba. Rabo dai ne kawai.
Also intriguing is the folktale that crocodiles inhabit the same river where children and adults bathe and play. While this may symbolize the unity and peace in the story of the two warring kingdoms, the tranquility between crocodiles, fish and humans is highly unheard of.
A kadodi mu ba mu yadda su taba, alƙawali na ba su tabawa ba a taba su. In kaga an taba su mu ne mu ɗauko su idan sarki na da wata taro haka na biyan bukata na kaba, in mun ka ɗauka muka yi wasa sai mu mai da su ruwa.
Some speculate that the custodian of the river, known as Sarkin Ruwan Kabi, undertakes some magical rituals before the festival. Others say cordoning off the vicinity days before the event is to allow some persons to secretly import large fish to the stream. There are those who believe fishermen sneak into the river to perform magical rituals to catch big fish, while others say the fishermen possess magical powers to transfigure other competitors' log of woods or things inside the river into big fish.
We think it is a secret or a black magic or something like that. It isn't. What we have learned from our ancestors is to conserve. It's all about conservation. We're celebrating conservation. You know, what people, apart from celebrating peace and reconciliation, are also celebrating conservation, because in that river, since 2019, no one has been allowed to go into that river to catch a single fish. So it's a reservoir where all kinds of fish live in peace from one festival period to another festival period. If it is annual, at least the fish has 12 months of peaceful feeding, you know, peaceful living, which attracts a lot of fish to that area because there is no fishing allowed.
Whatever the story is, it has contributed in making the festival a scintillating event of international repute, so much so that UNESCO enlisted the fishing festival as a World Heritage event. But how could this international recognition be translated into something bigger for the people of Argungu and Kebbi State?
You know, the festival has gone, how easily it is recognized, so it's a brand, which I believe if we organize ourselves can sell and patronize, be patrons for many products, you know, and can raise funds for Nigeria, raise money for Kebbi State and for the Emirate. The potential is left to your imagination. Because
after 10 years of suspending the fishing festival, Matam Father River came alive in 2020 to mark the most recent event. To preserve the rich history of the Matan Father River, urgent action should be taken to mitigate the possible impact of climate change on the stream to avoid drying up. Government should also consider the riverside as a national treasure that should be preserved as a tourist site.
Now, that was a special report by Ayuba Ilya that unravels the mystery behind the Argungu Fishing Festival. Away from Nigeria, at least 6 children have been killed in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo after a fire broke out at a camp for people displaced by flooding. The camp in the town on Kalehe has been home to about 420 families from Bushushu, a village on Lake Kivu near the eastern border with Rwanda. The village was hammered by fierce rain and landslides that killed at least 400 people in May. Thomas Bakinga, administrator for the Kalehe region, said the blaze erupted on Saturday afternoon and killed several children, 2 small boys and 4 small girls aged 1 to 5 years old. He said 4 adults had been hospitalized for burns. Reports say the fire started in a hut in the middle of the site where a child was cooking while the parents were not around. About 360 horns of plastic taps with thatch roofs were destroyed in the blaze. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimated that approximately 3,000 families had been left homeless after the flooding and mudslides in eastern DRC, a region already plagued by armed groups fighting against the central government. And now finally on sports, New Spain defeated England 1-0 in the final of the Women's World Cup on Sunday, carving off a tournament that has broken attendance and television records. Co-hosted by Australia and New Zealand, the 9th edition of the global showpiece was the first to be held in the Southern Hemisphere, while local interest ebbed when Australia exited in the semi-finals. Just shy of 2 million fans will have passed through the gates in 9 host cities after Sunday's final crowd of 75,784 is added to the tally. And Olga Carmona Gold was the difference between the two sides in a pulsating game that saw Spain create most of the clear-cut chances. Thousands of fans milled around Australia Stadium in Sydney hours before kick-off on Sunday, with trophies of drummers and stilt walkers creating a festival atmosphere. England and Spain were about making their first appearance at a Women's World Cup final, while England's wait for a first trophy since the men's tournament in 1966 goes on. The last Women's World Cup in France 4 years ago attracted more than 1.1 million fans to 52 matches, with an average crowd of 21,756. Now with that, we have come to the end of the News Hour on Trust TV. Do not forget to follow us across all our media platforms and our YouTube live stream. I am Abdurrahman Omar. Thanks for watching and bye for now.